How's everybody? Is there anybody here that's actually not performing? Oh, awesome. Okay, good, good, good. Oh boy, aren't you guys glad the election's over? Oh, I am too. I don't know about where you guys vote, but where I vote, they'll give you those little stickers that say I voted. And those are really cool because you can take those and put like one on each thumb. And then when you're driving around and everybody's got their campaign signs on the street corners on election day, you can just go like, you look like the candidates. I voted, I voted. It makes me wonder if like the president gets stickers that say like, I vetoed. Okay, like most good high school students when I was a kid, I took a foreign language in high school. Unfortunately, I took German. And now my wife Julie, she took Spanish. Guess who gets on better now? I took German and actually went on an exchange one time. And one of the things that happened when I was on this exchange is one of my first days there, I got there and I was all groggy and I'm jet lagged. And I get up and my exchange partner's father, first thing he says to me in the morning is, "So, willst du Frühstück haben?" I was like, "Ja, Herr Meister." And conversely, when my exchange partner Boris came to the United States, first thing my mother asked him was, "Boris, would you like some breakfast?" "Ja, Frau Triola." I was like, Mom, he's German, he's not deaf, you know. It makes me wonder, how many wars do you think it started? Because there's the negotiation tables, and somebody says, "First off, would anybody like some bagels?" The negotiations are over, you know. Oh. Well, with a crowd like this, at least I know I won't have any trouble finding my car in the parking lot afterward. You come to church, isn't it tough finding your car sometimes? You get out here and, Pastor Jim has that gift for delivering a powerful, sometimes lengthy sermon. And I get into it, and I'm doing the praise and worship, I'm doing all that stuff, and I go out and I have my coffee, and I can't find my car, so I have to wait in the lobby. We have the coffee, it makes it a lot easier, because what happens is, I've noticed that the most enterprising individuals, what they do is they're the ones that have the tea time right after church. And so they come to church and they get in the handicap spots and they use their golf clubs as a cane. And then what they do is they run up for prayer afterwards. They say, "I'm healed," and they're running out the back door. So that clears out part of the lot. And then what happens is everyone else, one by one, just sets off their car alarm by remote. It's just like, one white SUV after another. And then, all that's left is my station wagon after that. So I can go out and drive off. And of course, I'm really pumped full of coffee at that point, so I actually don't need to drive the car. But a couple months ago, Pastor Jim was talking about if God had a refrigerator in heaven, your picture would be on it. You remember that? That was an awesome analogy. And so just thinking, my picture is on God's fridge. And then I started wondering about that. It's like, okay, if my picture's on God's fridge, where are all the lost sheep? And I thought about it. They're on the milk cartons inside of God's fridge. Right? Okay. And speaking of fridges, if we're created in God's image, then it stands to reason that God's fridge has a lot of leftovers. Our refrigerator, a lot of times, the dinner item will be, cream of leftover soup. And the other day, Julie was having some, she got it out, she threw it in the microwave and heated it up and threw a bunch of crackers into it, and she's eating it, and she's like, "This isn't soup. This is gravy." It's like, good old gravy and crackers, yeah. So it winds up in the dog's dish, and then all you hear is this, it's like, anyway, my dog is, I have a very unusual dog. He's, I don't know if he grew up we got him from the pound, and I don't know if he was like in a tough street kennel or what, but when we got him, he was paranoid about leaving it. If he could not finish his meal, he would try to bury it. Does anybody have a dog that does that? So it's like, we actually stayed in a hotel room one time, and the dog could not find anything to bury his food with. He used his leash to bury the food, and it was still attached to him. And so he'd sit there and whimper and whine because he couldn't move, because if he moved, his food would be uncovered. And so it was like, okay, so we got a towel for him or something. It's a hotel towel, we don't care. So, but now it's like, he goes home and if he can't finish a meal, next thing I know, he's foraging through the hamper of my drawers. I'm like, where's my striper t-shirt? It's like, I have a striper t-shirt. Okay, where's my, with the gravy train. Okay, I'm actually kind of lucky that my dog buries his food because I was thinking about like archaeological digs. You don't want to have a dog on an archaeological dig with you because the job is to dig stuff up. And my dog would be burying things. Because like you go to an archaeological dig, you get anthropologists and they'll discover like a 1 by 2 inch bone fragment. And then the next thing you know, they build this entire dinosaur around it. Have you seen these things like on National Geographic? It's like Brontosaurus rex, it's like this giant dinosaur after this little tiny fragment. It's like, I don't know how they do that. It's really cool though. Extreme makeover, I guess. Anyway, and I think about other things like, for instance, what would archaeologists, after we've disappeared from the earth, pre, post, mid, whatever, after we vanish from the earth, what's going to be left of our society? What's our legacy? It's going to be a bunch of plastic toys, right? So some aliens will come to Earth, thousands of years from now, and they're going to find like Pez dispensers and like Play-Doh fuzzy pumper stuff. And what are they going to think about our race? It's like, well, apparently the way they fed each other is they lift their head and they would just feed each other through the throat. And, apparently they were a naturally bald species, and they would go to the barber shop and sit down on a chair, and they would force hair through each other's bodies and then shave it off. And it's an interesting thought. So did everybody bring canned food tonight? Cans of food? Nobody brought tomatoes to throw, I hope. Okay. Did you bring stuff that you would actually eat? Because you always go to these things and you find like beets, and it's like, nobody, you see like, oh, a can of barbecued deep fried okra. Nobody would eat that. And of course now there's one person out there that's like, barbecue deep fried okra, can. Oh, that sounds good. Yeah. So when we're doing the canned food drive, it's a good time to ask yourself, what would Jesus do? You would think Jesus would feed the hungry, right? He did that. There's an example with the feeding the 5,000. He fed 4,000 elsewhere in the Bible. And, whenever I ask myself, what would Jesus do? I've got to a point now in my life where I often find myself in a position where it doesn't really apply. Like, if I'm waiting for a bus and it's 12 degrees outside, what would Jesus do? He'd be saying, man, I wish I hadn't worn sandals. It's cold out here. And, or like, the prime example, like you're going to catch a ferry to Bainbridge Island and you miss the boat. Well, he'd walk. And let's face it, if you were a shark in the Sea of Galilee and you were like, no, I'm not going to do that. Or like if you go into McDonald's, what would Jesus do? Well, he'd probably get a filet of fish, but then he'd break it up and share it with everybody in the restaurant. And there would be 12 Happy Meal bags left over. Okay. One last thing before we move on here. Have you ever wondered, what would you do if Jesus came back today? Just like if he came walking in right here at Eastside, walking down, and this isn't like happy, like precious moments Jesus. This is the real Hebrew, it's not soft pastel Thomas Kincaid stuff. This is like, he was a Hebrew guy, he's got holes in his hands. He was, this guy, he doesn't speak a word of English, right? And what would he say? He'd be like, Jesus, would you like to break bread with us? Bless you, my son. Thank you very much.